Nobody wants to see something that is inconsistent in nature.
Surround yourself with people who inspire you. It kind of comes down to that also, right? I should listen to people who I think either match my standard or are doing better, and I can actually learn from.
At one point of time, everybody has to bow down to YouTube because undeniably it's up there. Like if you make anything YouTube compliant, it will be okay on everything else. Like we try to help each other out as much as possible. So I collaborate with two of my colleagues. They help me come up with the final product.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the Trending Podcast, and thank you for joining us again. I think this is going to be a follow-up for what an episode that you've already seen, essentially talking about short-form content. We spoke about the why of it and what kind of short-form content exists and how it's come to be in our lives. But Rajul's back again. Rajul is our short-form content guru, I guess. The guy who does a lot of things. I'll let him talk about himself, but he's back. We just thought we'd talk about our workflows and how you can create good short-form content and how you can actually be mindful about the short-form content that you create. Because I think one of the points that Rajul you brought up in the last episode, if you haven't listened to that, people, please go listen to it again, because I think it's good from the artist's perspective or the creator's perspective to actually understand, the mindset behind it. But I think you brought up like the fact that, there is attention to detail. It's not just randomized content.
So hi guys, this is Rajul again. So today we'll be talking about my process on how I edit short form videos. So basically this is, okay, before I get into the technicalities, for me this is not a solo effort, like in the sense that I do not do everything by myself. So basically what we have is, we have a system on how all of us work. Like we try to help each other out as much as possible. So I collaborate with two of my colleagues. They help me come up with the final product. So yeah, now I'll start with how we do it, how we go about it. So in the beginning, I'll talk about how we handle a certain podcast of ours, which I guess everybody who is watching is familiar with, which is TNB. So TNB is basically Solana focus podcast where they have guests who are relevant to the market and they talk about different topics and all that. So basically, they send us a recording of the podcast, and the guys, they fix it up. The audio is fixed, the video is made, the trailers, everything. And after everything is done, after the script has been written and like everything has been transcribed, it comes to me and some of the other guys. So basically what we do is we download the RAWs, basically. That is what I do. But like recently I've stopped doing it because there's a problem with the audio apparently. So I download the complete finished video, and my job thereafter is to go through the script of that particular episode, which is supplied by Kalyan. The podcast is around 45 minutes long. So what he does is he sits through the entire thing, and he will have highlighted parts which are relevant to some topics. And then we have to like make shorts and snippets out of those segments. Your typical YouTube shorts. Like let's say you have Joe Rogan there and he's talking to someone and there's like captions coming on top of them when they're speaking. And that's it. Like, yeah, that's your typical shot. It's basically meant to be viewed on your phone. Now,
Right.
As for snippets are literally like segments taken out of the main video, and 99% of the time they are not vertical, they are horizontal. They are basically like, segments taken out of the actual clip, and there's nothing added to it. It's literally just that part of the video. And like, yeah, obviously you have this intro and your outro slide, but apart from that, like that is the difference between a short and a snippet. A snippet is literally just a part of that video. A short is also that, but also more. So after the selections are made, what I do is I sit down and I take the main 40-50 minute video, and then looking at the script and the timestamps there. In the beginning, I just make cuts from the beginning to the end. So obviously people will like slur or like, there'll be some kind of anomaly when people are speaking. So maybe they could stutter, maybe they make a mistake, or like, the ums and buts and this and that. So after I make the general cuts, I sit down and I try to make it as clean as possible, but not making it jarring. You can make every cut clean, but at the same time, you have to be mindful about how natural it is looking, because you don't want that person to sound like a rapper if you cut out everything. Me personally, sometimes I leave in some, let's call them vocal blemishes. Okay, I leave in some to make it like a bit more natural. After I do that,
and also it also affects the video, right? It also affects the video because it's on kind of looks like they're dropping frame. Why is it so important to polish up the shots to that extent where you're trying to remove as much as you possibly can?
Why would you not do it is my question, because nobody wants to see something that is inconsistent in nature, like with a lot of hiccups. So if you like, let's say you watched a movie, but there were a lot of mistakes, obviously you won't enjoy it, or like anything in general. And the other reason is like we try to make it as good looking and professional as possible because we don't want to put out shoddy work. And it's also a sign of clumsiness, like in a sense. Like, you're just slapdashing doing it for the sake of it. Like, what's the point of doing it anyway? Like, if you think about it that.
We've kind of discussed this before because when you're working on the documentary as well, we were very mindful of the fact that, it's a long form content, but our audience is very used to short form content. They're used to TikTok. They're used to like just quickly scrolling and like you mentioned in the previous episode, doom scrolling as well, right? So we're very mindful of the fact that people will lose interest within 3 seconds, as short as 3 seconds. Like our average attention span has come down drastically, right? So how do you keep them engaged? Like if one of those 3 seconds is full of just ums and ahs, why would I continue watching it for the rest of the short, right?
Exactly.
So it's caring about how the audience perceives it. It's not just caring because it's a lot of work for you to do. It's a lot of cuts. You don't need to do it, but you do it because you care about how people are going to consume it also, right?
No, that is very true because usually like when I do work regarding anything, whatever I make, I try to think also from the perspective of somebody who is actually consuming. So like, because I am a very picky watcher. When it comes to any kind of media, like music, movies, whatever, I would not want to subject myself to something I myself consider shoddy work. Obviously, I'm not the pinnacle of perfect. Nobody is. But like, you would want to maintain standard. You would want to make it clean and like have a retain quality base. So yeah, after that, I make cuts and I do all of this in DaVinci and the rest of it, I don't do it in DaVinci and I'll tell you why. So basically, DaVinci is a very powerful tool. In my opinion, it's nibbling at the heels of Premiere and Adobe video solutions in general. It's really good.
You know what? Apart from After Effects, I've actually stopped editing any content in Premiere now. I mean, I wanted to get back into the ecosystem as well, but it's just so much more stable. Like I've not faced a single crash. Like I'll tell you, just the day before, I think on Saturday, I think it was. No, it's Friday today, right? So whenever this week, I was working on a time lapse, right? And dude, I kid you not, whenever I work on a time lapse in Premiere, I can guarantee it's gonna crash at least once.
Yeah, I agree about the stability. Like all these years, it has only crashed once for me. And by the grace of God, I don't know, I have not enabled it, but like autosave was there, which really shocked me because I remember at one point of time, like in the previous iterations, like a few years ago, it was not there. Or maybe it was not there on by default. So DaVinci is super stable. The workflow just makes sense. Like even the way the software is set up, you have different tabs. When you reach the end tab, you basically can export. So it just like it makes sense in the head too. And there are so many things you can do with DaVinci, which would be like an entire different kind of homes if I were to talk about it. But like I'll make this comparison, okay? So let's say you are just going out for a drive in the neighborhood, like in your local area. And let's say you have a Bugatti in your garage and you also have a golf cart. So yeah, a Bugatti is infinitely superior. It is way more technical. It can do so many things. But at the same time, it is not something which is, you can't go easy on. It's not an everyday driver. And like, I think the best comparison can be made in music. So pop music is easy listening. It's just there. It's playing. It's okay. If you want to just consume music or turn on the radio, you just want something playing in the background. Easy listening, as they say. Na? And sometimes, like, let's say you want to listen to some technical band, okay, or technical, like classical, like, or jazz or whatever. And then you have to have that proper setting. Na? You want to enjoy the music. So the same thing can be said about DaVinci and the software which I choose to do most of my editing, and that is CapCut. So yeah, this might be controversial. But recently, yeah, CapCut is gaining traction.
Sorry, I know you said it's controversial, but here's the thing. I think a lot of people don't even consider CapCut when they should. Because editors, we have this thing, right? Oh, if I'm not using Premiere, if I'm not using DaVinci, if I'm not using Final Cut, I'm some sort of lesser editor. Why does a tool make you a better or a lesser editor? An editor should be a good editor regardless of the tool. We shouldn't look down or look up to someone just because they're using a certain kind of tool. And I mean, you said earlier in the previous episode that you came from photography, and we've seen this a lot in photography because I'm a photographer myself also, right? Like people are like, oh, which camera, which lens, oh, which mode are you using? Why does it matter? Just what matters more is the output,
Output,
like
exactly.
But like the client couldn't care less whether you use CapCut or whether AI is doing it. What do they care, right?
As long as you deliver.
Mini rant, but go on.
No, but like you're very right. Elitism exists everywhere, and it's 2024, and I think it's high time people toned it down. But sadly, they won't. There are snobs everywhere in every area, but whatever. So yeah, I'll tell you guys about why I prefer using CapCut. So CapCut is not the perfect solution for everything. But for what we particularly do with short form videos, in my opinion, it is the perfect solution. So basically, what we do on a typical short is we have a standard font which we use. So that is one component of it. You obviously have the captions which go along with the font. You have company logo or something somewhere on the screen. And maybe you have like guest introduction slides and this and that. And that is about it. Okay, these are the main components that will make up a basic shot. So on DaVinci and everything, first of all, audio transcription, like the audio to text, it takes time. So there are so many things you can do with it, but at the same time, it is kind of complicated. Like, you need not complicate matters so much. In CapCut, it's a matter of auto-generating captions. There's a literal tab there. You just click on it, you wait for like 5-10 seconds, it's done. And the AI, surprisingly, is really, really good. So it's kind of surprising that CapCut, being a free tool, is way more accurate than these paid
Yeah.
applications. And that is one reason why I use CapCut, because it's very easy and everything is right there. Like, for example, I was talking to one of our other team members, Stinson. He was telling me, or he does most of his editing on like Premiere. He and I, like, we do half and half, like we used to do like shorts. So that guy, he made all of his stuff on Premiere, and he was telling me if I have to make a tiny change somewhere, be it in the text or like be it in the video, I'll have to re-render everything, and that takes a lot of time. But for me, when I'm using CapCut, I don't have to render anything because the software is so light. You don't have to pre-render anything. There is like a disadvantage. You will have to download a VPN in order to use some stuff.
Yeah, disclaimer, this is for those
Yeah.
of us in countries that I don't want to be like offensive, but censorship prevails.
Yeah,
Let's put it that
censorship.
way.
Yeah, that is the only disadvantage I can think of. So what I do is like I auto-generate captions, go from the front to end, and I fix up all the grammatical errors if there are any. After that, now this is another big advantage of CapCut, in my opinion, is on Premiere or whatever, like you have your captions which come out in like single blocks. And in order to divide them, you will have to manually select up to which text you want it. Like, let's say there's a sentence. There are 5 words. You want a separation between the third word and the last 2 words. You'll have to do it manually. Like, you'll have to go select, and like you have to manually like make a cut there, and like you have to separate it. You have to fix the time and everything. But on CapCut, the AI, what it does is, so there is this tab called caption. So we follow this rule of just having one line of text per shot to make it like less cluttered and it's more pleasing to look at too. So what CapCut does is, it's just a matter of going to the middle of the sentence, pressing enter, and the software, like, it'll align it to the part where that person is saying that particular word. So instead of me having to spend a good hour or so like cutting everything up, setting the time, and being very paranoid about it, I can do the same thing in 5 minutes on CapCut. There is always a standard font which a company will use. So you can't be haphazard about it unless they let you have that creative freedom. But like, you should be polite enough to ask them, can I do this? Unless
Yeah.
you don't have their approval, I highly suggest nobody like do it on their own. So basically, we have to take that in mind, like the brand image, and then you add in a few effects here and there. Like, obviously, caption will look very flat just by itself. So in order to make it pop, you give it a outline first. So what I do is, like, people usually call it a day just by adding a line outside. Some people do that. There is another tier of people who add a line and then just add shadows, and they call it a day. Okay, this is most of the people do that. But what I personally find very pleasing to the eyes is if you add glow to the text. It elevates the look of the caption in a whole different way. Obviously, you have to be subtle
Yeah.
about it, and like, you always have to have it set on black. Okay, because if you set it on white, it'll look like fairies. But yeah,
Right.
like, adding glow to your text can make it really pop and make it like really look good. And regarding captions, is fairly like straightforward. Like, I can't talk much about captioning.
Yeah, I think we can move on because I mean,
Ah.
if people need a tutorial, they can let us know. We'll make a tutorial at some point.
Yeah. So that is that. And after that, like, if the client has any intro or outro slides, we try to incorporate it there. Keeping in mind that everything is under 60 seconds because most of our stuff goes on YouTube. So we have to be very particular about it fitting. in that time frame. We can't have anything exceed 60.
Yeah, I think that's an important point, right? Although we don't publish only on YouTube, we have to publish on YouTube as well. And so you have to go with the platform that has the most number of constraints.
Exactly.
So for example, like, if YouTube has 60 seconds, Instagram allows you to do more than 60 seconds, TikTok also allows you to do more than 60 seconds. But that doesn't mean that you create content that is more than 60 seconds, because then you put it on YouTube, it doesn't work as a short.
Exactly.
So for us, that's the priority. Like, okay,
that
YouTube is the one with the most constraints. Yeah, it makes sense because it's the one with the most constraints. You work with according to that.
Exactly.
And so that kind of helps you. You have to be creative within a certain constraint also, right? Within a certain environment. So it works that way. So bearing that in mind, like, don't just create captions like, short form content which is like 90 seconds and then wonder why it doesn't work on YouTube.
Exactly.
That doesn't work.
At one point of time, everybody has to bow down to YouTube because undeniably it's up there. Like, if you make anything YouTube compliant, it will be okay on everything else. Coming back to it, so we try to stick it to the time frame, and after that it gets sent in for the first review. So I think it really helps if you are a solo content creator, or like, if I recommend you send your stuff to your friends or family and have them give their honest opinion. Like, regarding us here in NEM, we have to be brutally honest because it is not our content. We are making content for someone and our neck is on the line. But like, when you're making content for yourself, like, the pressure is not there. Na? You have to.
So kind of challenge that a little, like, even this podcast, like, we're not doing this for a client, we're doing this ourselves, but we are still very, very honest with one another. We're like, oh, this is not working, like, this is too much, or like, this is absolutely crap, work on it. But I mean, you'll know this, and this is good. That was really good advice to, I think, people who are starting out. Friends and family, to me, has never been the best of people who gives you the best advice, right? Because it's always like, oh yeah, he's doing it really good. No, first of all, be your own worst critic, but also give it to people who will be honestly critical with you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because very often we live in this bubble, and then you think that, oh, I'm doing the best work out there, in the world. But then suddenly when other people start coming in, and then you start figuring out, like, oh, this is not working, this is bad.
And then
it hits your self-esteem. Exactly.
So the review process, we have a lot of people who go through most of the stuff which we do as a team, and like, everybody will give their own, because at the end of the day, we want it to be good, and like, the more amount of criticism we get, in fact, I feel like it is better. Like, the more amount of improvements we can make, because then we know, okay, there are 10 problems, I fixed all 10 problems, and then you have this peace of mind too. You have worked properly on it, and there can't be more wrong with it. But like, if you just get like, oh, this is fine in the first, like, okay, it's in very rare cases you could be doing something like which is flawless. In terms of like short form content, like, it's not a matter of flawless or like flawed or this and that. Okay, you have simple flaws, but like, maybe there's a grammatical error somewhere. Maybe somebody's like name is popping in the wrong way, or like minor technical stuff, which is very easy to fix. So we have at least 2 rounds of like reviews where everybody goes through like whatever we make, and after it gets approved, I get it back, and basically I polish it a bit. I won't add to it, but whatever is there, I'll make it better. And after that, we upload it to the main database, and that is about it.
Yeah, I think that was a good point also about something. It's not just about what I think. Oh, this is good enough. It's also about actually creating good work. Because I think we spoke about this like episode 4 or something when we were talking to Varun also about like a lot of the design stuff.
But to add to that, I feel like you should only take serious advice from people who you think know their stuff. Because sometimes, like, people, they will have stupid reasons to not like whatever is there. Unless it's really making sense, unless you trust that person 100%, I would take whatever other people say with a grain of salt. Because sometimes it could be detrimental to your growth too.
That's a good point, because this whole, it's a very cliche thing at this point, but it's like, surround yourself with people who inspire you. Mm-hmm. It kind of comes down to that also, right? I should listen to people who I think either, match my standard or are doing better, and I can actually learn from. Because if it's someone who I also don't take seriously, then what's the point of even asking for advice in the first place? Because you're wasting their time, I'm wasting my time, wasting everyone's time, and also it's not helping me grow. Exactly. Like, essentially get advice from or feedback from people who can actually help you grow, or who you think will help you grow as well. I think we can always follow up. I think there are a lot of things that we had a lot of talking points which we still haven't even gone through half of them yet.
Yeah.
But we can always get Rajul on at some point. Maybe he's with us for a little bit longer, so we'll figure that out. Cool. So I think we'll wrap up there. We can come back if anyone has requests on like specific stuff that you want us to talk about with regards to shorts and short form content, or even we can even talk about how do you see whether it's performing well, engagement rates and all those kind of things, animations and overlays and I don't know, narrative flows and all of these things we can talk about. But anyway, thank you, Rajul. Thank you for joining. Thank you for, I think we set a recording time. We've gone way above that. But thank you for anyway,
thank you
sharing your side of it. Yeah. So cool. Stay tuned, subscribe, like, share, whatever, and you know the drill. So do that. And Rajul did you mention your gamer tag on this one or the previous episode? I don't remember. Whatever it was. If you want to pick a fight with Rajul, you'll know where to find him. Go listen to the previous episode. So go pick a fight with him.